6. Errors and alarms. If the remedy doesn't reset the error or alarm condition, or if an error or alarm that is not listed in this document occurs, consult our service office. 16.1 Alarm Codes. Alarm code message probable cause remedy A3020 weld if card DSP error in DSP on the weld if card. Turn off the power and then newly turn it on. If the error occurs frequently, consult Panasonic representatives. A3021 filler if card DSP error in DSP on the filler if card. A3030 weld if card DSP communication error. Communication error between if and CPU on the weld if card. A3031 filler if card DSP communication error. Communication error between if and CPU on the filler if card. A3100 weld if card COM. Error the weld if card did not respond when the power was turned on. A3101 filler if card COM. Error the filler if card did not respond. A3200 weld alarm cheeky smiley face, side over voltage welding power source of TAWERS. Detected primary side over voltage. A3210 weld alarm, lack of phase welding power source of TAWERS. Detected lack of phase. A3220 weld alarm, S side main circuit error. An error is detected at the secondary side main circuit of welding power source of TAWERS. A3230 weld alarm, S side over voltage error. 120 VDC or more voltage was applied to the secondary side of welding power source. Turn off the power and then check connection of secondary side of welding power source. A3240 weld alarm, inverter unbalance error in twin inverter of TAWERS. Welding power source. Turn off the power and then newly turn it on. If the error occurs frequently, consult Panasonic representatives. A3500 wire feeder amp ready error servo power for the wire feeder amp did not go on. A3510 wire feeder IPM error in wire feeder IPM. A3520 weld if card received data error weld if card received an abnormal command. A3521 filler if card received data error the filler if card received an abnormal command. A3530 wire feeder amp low voltage wire feeder control voltage dropped. A3540 wire feeder motor speed over wire feeder motor speed exceeded its maximum speed. A3550 wire feeder current detect error wire feeder motor current value is abnormal. A3560 wire feeder regenerative register over duty error. Error in regenerative register of the wire feeder. There exists possible motor failure or servo amp failure. A3570 wire feeder IPM overcurrent error overcurrent of wire feeder IPM. A3590 wire feeder IPM over temperature error in IPM. Errors and alarms. 270 OM1009082E17. A3600 weld alarm, AC unit S side over voltage error. Secondary side over voltage error is detected. Extend the welding cable, and then turn the power to the robot and the AC unit off and back on again. A4000 over temperature abnormal temperature rise is detected. Continued operation may damage interior equipment. Turn off the power and allow the machine to cool, and then newly turn on the power. A4010 contact welded, spare emergency stop. Circuit is fused. Safety card may be damaged. Check the circuit connected to the terminal indicated in the alarm message and replace safety card as needed. A4020 contact welded, panel emergency stop. A4030 contact welded, TP emergency stop. A4040 contact welded, door stop. A4041 contact welded, door stop. UDS, A4042 contact welded, door stop. Line, A4050 contact welded, overrun. A4060 contact welded, external emergency stop. A4070 contact welded, Software emergency stop A4080 contact welded. Start relay stop A4090 contact welded. Protective stop 1A4100 contact welded. Protective stop 2A4110 contact welded. Harmony emergency stop 1A4120 contact welded. Harmony emergency stop 2A4130 contact welded. Mode switch, line, A4131 contact welded. Mode switch, dead. ENBL, A4132 contact welded. Mode switch, DS, ENBL, A4140 overrun release input is detected. Overrun release input is not conscious. Tent. Turn off the power and then check the overrun release switch. A4150 safety circuit 24V error. An error in supply voltage at safety circuit is detected. Turn off the power and then check the fuse of the safety card. A4160 sequencer PWR24V error. An error in supply voltage at the sequence circuit. Turn off the power. Then check fuse on the sequencer board and power control board. Check also connection of the supply voltage. A4900 contact welded. Independent axis servo off input, ****, represents axis name. Fuse at servo off input of the independent E-axis servo is detected. Check the wiring of servo off input of the independent E-axis servo. A5000 system alarm, ****, represents a current factor. An error in controller. Or introduction of noise. Turn off the power and then newly turn it on. If the error occurs frequently, consult Panasonic representatives. A5010 abort, A5011 abort, TP, an error in controller or teach pen. DANT, or introduction of noise. Alarm code message probable cause remedy errors and alarms. OM10090882E17271. A5020 IOPCPU error. An error in controller. Or introduction of noise. Turn off the power and then newly turn it on. If the error occurs frequently, consult Panasonic representatives. A5021 sequencer card COM. Error. An error in communication with sequencer card occurred. Check the communication cable for wiring and breaking of wire, and then restore power. If the error occurs frequently, consult Panasonic representatives. A5022 safety card COM. Error. An error in communication with safety card occurred. A5030 servo CPU error. An error in controller or introduction of noise. Turn off the power and then newly turn it on. If the error occurs frequently, consult Panasonic representatives. A5040X1 servo CPU error. A5050X2 servo CPU error. A5060 weld if card CPU error. A5070 filler if card CPU error. A5100 command generating error. An error occurred while writing to the command buffer. A5200 robot COM. Error. An error in communication between robots occurred. The other robot was brought to an alarm stop. Or an error in introduction of noise in communication between robots occurred. Check the other robot and investigate the cause. If the error occurs frequently, consult Panasonic representatives. A5300 TP communication error. An error in controller or teach pen. DANT, or introduction of noise. Turn off the power and then newly turn it on. If the error occurs frequently, consult Panasonic representatives. A5310 IOPCPU COM. Error. An error in controller, or introduction of noise. A5400 TP connection error. Although TP is connected, it is failed to recognize the connection. A5410 EMG stop box connection error. The emergency stop box was removed while operating the robot with the emergency stop box for T+ function attached. Or an emergency stop box is later connected to a robot controller without TP or emergency stop box. A6010 servo COM. Timeout. An error in controller or introduction of noise. A6011 servo COM. Timeout, position AC, A6012 servo.com. Timeout, position demand, A6020 servo.com. Error A6030 servo on, off response error. There is a possibility that the chattering of the emergency stop input has occurred. A6040 servo position command error A6110x1, servo.com. Timeout A6111x1, servo.com. Timeout, position A6112x1, servo.com. Timeout, position demand, A6120x1, servo.com error. Alarm code message probable cause remedy errors and alarms. 272 OM1009082E17. A6130x1, servo on, off response error. There is a possibility that the chattering of the emergency stop input has occurred. An error in controller or introduction of noise. Turn off the power and then newly turn it on. If the error occurs frequently, consult Panasonic representatives. A6210x2, servo.com. Timeout A6211x2, servo.com. Timeout, position A6212x2, servo.com. Timeout, position demand, A6220x2, servo.com. Error. A6230x2, x2, servo on, off response error. There is a possibility that the chattering of the emergency stop input has occurred. A7000 interpolation data error. An error in processing of interpolation data. A7001 servo control error. An error in processing of distribution data. A7002 servo CPU COM error. An error in servo circuit. A7003 skew error. Difference in encoder pulse between the gantry axis and the pair axis exceeds the allowable range. A7004 drift error. A drift error occurred. A7005 preset count over detected excessive deviation at pre-set movement. A7006 D error. Either disconnection or short circuit is detected between the resolver and the D converter. A7007 absolute encoder error. Absolute encoder is not readable. In case of an independent external axis, the brake of the external axis controller is in the off position. Turn off the power and then newly turn it on. If the error occurs frequently, consult Panasonic representatives. A7008 absolute data speed error. Difference between the position counter and the absolute data exceeds allowable range. A7009 position count over detected excessive position deviation. A7010 amp ready error. Servo amp ready error. A7011 IPM error. An error in the intelligence power module, IPM. A7012 servo power error. An error in servo amplifier. A7013 IPM over current. IPM over current. A7014 IPM over temperature error of IPM. A7015 regenerative register over duty over regeneration of the servo ampli. Fear. A7016 regenerative register over voltage. An error in regenerative voltage of the servo amplifier. A7017 regenerative register over temperature. An error in regenerative temperature of the servo amplifier. A7018 servo power over temperature. An error in servo power temperature. Alarm code message probable cause remedy errors and alarms. OM1009082E17273. A7019 regenerative register over duty over regeneration is detected when power is turned on, or a servo power error. Turn off the power and then newly turn it on. If the error occurs frequently, consult Panasonic representatives. A7020 regenerative register over voltage. An error in regenerative voltage is detected when power is turned on, or a servo power error. A7021 regenerative register over temperature. An error in regenerative temperature is detected when power is turned on, or a servo power error. A7022 servo power over temperature and error in servo power temperature is detected when power is turned on. A7023 lack of phase open phase in servo power. A7024 servo protect card initialize error and error in initial communication between servo CPU card and servo protective card. A7025 servo protect card com. Error in communication error between servo CPU card and servo protective card. A7026 servo protect card CPU error and error in CPU of the servo protect TIVE card. A7027 encoder cable error and error in encoder cable of the servo CPU card. A7028 main servo com. Error, DPROM FIFO full. An error in communication between servo and main. A7029 motor current stall failed to apply the current to the motor due to breaking of PWM wire or motor power cable. A7030 counter error failed to update the electric angle counter 10 times in a row. A7031 thermal reference setting error failed to specify the reference value for the encoder overheat. A7032 status reset error failed to reset the encoder status. Turn off the power and then newly turn it on. If the error occurs frequently, consult Panasonic representatives. A7033 encoder status error at the time of resetting the overheat bit of the encoder status, bits other than overheat bit are turned on. A7034 absolute data status error. The motor was still in motion when encoder power was turned on. A7035 encoder single turn count error. Accuracy of the single turn data of the encoder has been reduced. A7036 encoder multi-turn count error and error in the multi-rotation counter of the encoder. A7040 servo CPU com. Error and error in servo circuit. A7041 servo memory error and error in servo circuit. A7042 current detect error and overcurrent error. A7050 servo power off, PRST off, an error between servo and main. A7051 servo power down, servo power voltage decreased to 100 volts or lower. A7080 servo torque free error failed to switch to the torque free state. A7090 servo undefined code error and error between servo and main. A7100X1 interpolation data error and error in processing of interpolation data. Alarm code message probable cause remedy errors and alarms. 274 OM1009082E17. A7101X1 servo control error and error in processing of distribution data. Turn off the power and then newly turn it on. If the error occurs frequently, consult Panasonic representatives. A7102X1 servo CPU com. Error and error in servo circuit. A7103X1 skew error difference in encoder pulse between the gantry axis and the pair axis exceeds the allowable range. A7104X1 drift error occurred. A7105X1 preset count over detected excessive deviation at pre-set movement. A7106X1 D error, either disconnection or short circuit is detected between the resolver and the D converter. A7107X1 absolute encoder error. Absolute encoder is not readable. In case of an independent external axis, the brake of the external axis controller is in the off position. A7108X1 absolute data speed error difference between the position counter and the absolute data exceeds allowable range. A7109X1 position count over detected excessive position devia. TN. A7110X1 amp ready error servo amp ready error. A7111X1 IPM error and error in the intelligence power module IPM. A7112X1 servo power error and error in servo amplifier. A7113X1, IPM over current and IPM over current error. Turn off the power and then newly turn it on. If the error occurs frequently, consult Panasonic representatives. A7114X1, IPM over temperature and over temperature error of IPM. A7115X1, regenerative register over duty. An over regeneration of the servo amplifier error. A7116X1, regenerative register over voltage. An error in regenerative voltage of the servo amplifier. A7117X1, regenerative register over temperature. An error in regenerative temperature of the servo amplifier. A7118X1, servo power over temperature. An error in servo power temperature. A7119X1, regenerative register over duty. Over regeneration is detected when power is turned on. Or a servo power error. A7120X1, regenerative register over voltage. An error in regenerative voltage is detected when power is turned on. Or a servo power error. A7121X1, regenerative register over temperature. An error in regenerative temperature is detected when power is turned on. Or a servo power error. A7122X1, servo power over temperature. An error in servo power temperature is detected when power is turned on. A7123X1, lack of phase open phase in servo power. A7124X1, servo protect card initialize error. An error in initial communication between servo CPU card and servo